At this time, we are privileged to have our next speaker who's going to be speaking to us right now. Yes.
Dale Lutz is a visionary tech entrepreneur and Christian servant leader with a heart for impact. As co-founder and longtime co-CEO of Safe Software, he helped grow a 2-person startup into a global tech company serving thousands. With over 30 years in innovative leadership, Dale brings unique insights on navigating the age of AI with wisdom, humility, and integrity. Now retired, he devotes his time to mentoring and giving back, sharing faith-driven leadership with the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, please welcome Dale Lutz.
Let me take you on a journey through space and time. Like I have to do this to advance the slide. Let's see how it works. There we go. That's our time machine and our space traveling machine. We're going to go all the way back to 1937, almost 90 years ago, to this place in the absolute middle of nowhere where I grew up, to this church where my great-grandparents were attending. And the guy on the top right, that's my grandpa. And that church was a group of people who for maybe 150 years had not seen very much change in the technology they were using. They were farming people, they lived godly lives, they lived simple lives, but they were facing a challenge. This thing was coming into some people's homes. It was a radio. And the people of the church wondered, what should we do about this? Should we allow radios in people's homes or not? And so the wise people of the church went away and did this. They studied the Bible to see what truths can we learn from what was written 2,000 years ago that help us in a time like this. And I'll just pick one of them. Philippians 4:8. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And there were a bunch of these kinds of verses, and we will send these out to you afterwards, that guided their decision. And in the end, these wise people came up with this. This was their conclusion about what should be done. And it's a lot of words there, but I want to look at these in particular. And so it says, we are living in an age of modern inventions. That's 1937. I think they would be pretty shocked if they were here today. But yes, they were living in an age of modern inventions. And they think that their members should be governed by personal conviction based on God's word as to what is right and wrong, and the proper and improper uses of the radio and other modern inventions. So they not only answered the question about the radio, but also things to follow. And their wisdom, I think, is very relevant to us today here. And it's certainly had a huge impact in my life. Because let's get back in our time machine and go all the way to 1981. When this young man had been saving his money. I was on a farm, and there I am. And I had saved my money by raising cows. My father would let me have one cow each year. And so for 3 years, I cared for this cow, and I sold that cow, and I saved my money, and I was a little short, so my sister gave me a loan at 14% interest, which is, I'm not sure in Rwanda, but in Canada that seems pretty high. So anyway, my sister gave me a loan, and I used my cow money, and I bought that computer right there. And I maybe should have spent some of that money on a better haircut, I know, but and now I began my journey of putting in my 10,000 hours to become an expert in computers very early. And if we get back in the time machine and go all the way to 1993, by then I had worked for several years in a technology company that believed in educating leaders. So I already saw as a young person the value of that education. And someone else that was in the leadership program there and myself decided, well, can we get that picture or not? But anyway, it's a picture of us opening up our first ever computer monitor in 1993. We spent all our money on that, and if you could see it, I'd make a joke about we maybe should have spent the money on clothing because we weren't very well dressed. But that was, and then we began from there. Let's go back into the future. Let's see if we can get that to happen. All the way to 2022, that company slowly grew from the two of us in our spare rooms to these people on the stage. By that point, there was 240 people in the company. And we had thousands of customers around the world. And during that time, I got to see the impact of good leaders, what good leaders could do in my company. And I also saw the impact of when I failed as a leader, how bad that was. And so I became very passionate over that time about leadership. And so that's partly why I'm so enthusiastic about the work that the Abundant Leadership Institute is doing. So, let's get back into the time machine, and here we are today in 2025, and let's look at our friends from Alberta, what they would have to say to us today. I think we are still living in an age of modern inventions, it feels like. That's still true. And I think it's still true that we should be governed by personal conviction as to how we use the technology for right or wrong. And I don't know how it is in Rwanda, but among people my age in Canada, there is some people who are very concerned about artificial intelligence. They think it's a bad thing. They don't want anything to do with it. Others think it's the greatest thing ever. Still others want to not have any human friends and only have AI friends. There's a spectrum there. But my conclusion, just like my ancestors, is that there are many good things with the technology, with AI, and we would be foolish not to use the good things. But we need to be vigilant to not use the bad things. I'm going to talk about a number of principles and ways you can use AI to help, but I want to preface it all by saying there is no substitute for having godly friends, godly peers, godly people in your network that you can talk with and learn from. There's no substitute for that. But we should use AI to help us. And so let's keep going. The point is that technology's always going to change. I am stunned, someone who has been in technology most of my life, at the speed that technology is changing. It is going to continue to do that. But the principles that we should follow, I believe, stay constant. And so let's keep those two things in mind as we explore a set of principles. So the first thing that I believe strongly is that leaders are learners. And in fact, if you're here today, you must share that conviction. But I know that for myself, I had the privilege over those 30 years when I was at SAFE. I chose to literally hear hundreds of speakers. I spent dozens of days learning, bringing home ideas that I could use in my company to make my company better, to make my people more productive. And I think that's so important. So never, ever stop learning is my advice to you. So, that might be, yeah, you can probably read that. This is one tiny way that you can use AI to help you with this. And I want to introduce you to a technique for using AI at the same time on this one. So I'm inside ChatGPT. Just to get a sense, how many here use ChatGPT once in a while? Yes, many. Okay, lots and lots of you. So in go back one. Sorry. We want to, the best way to use it is you first tell it who it is. You tell it its role. So I'm telling ChatGPT here that it is an experienced leadership coach and continuous learning strategist. So now it kind of knows what it's thinking. Okay, let's see the next line. Then you explain who you are. I am blah, 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 blah. And the more you say here, the better the result will be. So you kind of explain who you are. And the third thing you do is you tell it what its goal is. What do you want from it? So give me 5. Like it likes it when you're specific. Give me 3. Give me 4. So that in this case, practical habits I could build into my week to ensure that I'm a good learner. And then lastly, you give it kind of the format or how you want it to do this for you. So this is the format that I believe is useful to know about using AI, and here's specifically how we can use it to help us be learners. Okay. The other thing I learned over my years is that almost never do things go according to your plan. It's good to make a plan, it's good to have a goal, but then, as one of my longtime friends in Vancouver says, you must hold it loosely. Have a strategy or an attitude, a stance, where your hand is not like this, but your plan is loose in your hand. And then you work towards your plan, but as things change, then you change. You adapt. And again, going back to my church I grew up in, when I was young, I noticed they would always say, Lord willing, we will have our picnic on next Sunday. Lord willing, we will meet together here and there. And I always thought, Now the reference is from James where he warns us not to be proud about making our plans because God can change those plans. But for most of my life, if I said I was going to travel to Finland next month, I probably was going to travel to Finland next month. But then 2020 happened, and suddenly we all learned the importance of putting Lord willing on the beginning of all of our plans when things had to change. So I think that's important to realize that you can make plans, it's good to do that, but when things change, that is good. Keep following where God's going to take you. So this is a prompt here to help you when you're working with your team. Help me create a team talk to encourage my team on how we can make different strategies for when our plans change. This is just like having another friend that you can have at your fingertips to help you in different situations. Mistakes. There are always going to be mistakes. I made many mistakes. The important thing about mistakes is learning from them. Now, you should try to do as best you can to avoid them, but if they're going to happen, that's okay. You shake off the dust off you and you go again. But one thing that I found quite useful in my career, and I don't know how this will translate, was to do something we called a pre-mortem. So a post-mortem is when the doctor checks somebody after they're dead to see what happened. A pre-mortem is to discuss how can we avoid dying in the first place. And so I would do that with my team, but you all have a very smart friend at your fingertips. So you can, go to the next slide, yes, have something like this that says, you are a coach, Mr. ChatGPT, that helps us prepare. We're about to begin some project. I'd like your help in anticipating ways it might fail so we can reduce risk. Put it out there, get the AI to tell you things. Maybe half of them are no good, maybe all but one are no good, but at least you have one new idea to say, okay, I never thought that it might start pouring rain, and so maybe I should consider having a tent. So that's what this can help you with. All right. Another really important one that I learned is that people are the plan. That's a quote from that guy named Henry Cloud, but I remember before I started my company, I had one of my bosses, and she said, I have been doing this for a long time, and it doesn't really seem to matter what offices I give people, what tools they have, do they have fancy computers or simple ones, what process we follow. All those things seem like they don't really make that big of a difference. The number one thing that makes a difference is who is on my team. And so she said, I'm going to spend all my time making sure I have the best people and I give them the best that I possibly can, and then I'm going to get out of their way and let them figure the rest out. And I think that's a very, very wise thing. At my company, we were very careful about who we hired, and then once we hired them, we tried very hard to grow them to become the best that they could possibly be. Most of our staff for most of our years were students that we hired, and then we kept them and turned them into our leaders. And my best right-hand people when I left were people that started working with me 25 years ago when they were students. And I enjoyed that so much. So people are the plan. Even in the age of AI, yes, it's a helper, but people are the plan. And this is an important one that I learned early. I took a training course where they divided everybody into groups of about 6 people. And we had to do a simulation where this computer would tell you, this is what's happening, do you want to do A, B, C, or D? A very old kind of computer training. And then as a group, we had to decide, which one do we want to do? And in our group, there was 5 of us that would always agree on the same thing. It's obviously we should do B. And there was one guy who always wanted to argue with us. He never wanted to agree, and he always had a different idea. And it was driving me crazy. But what happened? We had to all talk about, why do the rest of us think it should be B? Why does he think it's F? And 95% of the time, we would agree, yes, B was the right one. But 5% of the time, we would agree that it was wrong and we should change. Some of it was to him and some of it was to a different choice altogether. So I learned that it's very important to have voices around you that don't always agree with you. Even though it's a little painful, it's very dangerous when you as a leader only have people that say, yes, oh, that's a great idea, yes, that's wonderful. And actually, I have learned that AI, at least ChatGPT, is extremely anxious to agree with you. It thinks that you're its master. And of course, whatever dumb idea you say, that's a great idea, it will tell you. So I will say, if you're using AI, you should use language like the bottom. Please challenge me respectfully. Highlight blind spots. Help me see risks or perspectives. Be honest and constructive. I'm not looking for agreement. I want to think better. You need to tell it that. Otherwise, it's just going to tell you, Dale, you're the smartest guy ever. I can't believe how great you are, which might make you feel good, but isn't good. My wife isn't agreeing, but it isn't going to give you the best result. This one, Leaders Eat Last. This is a book by a guy named Simon Sinek, who I really admire. And of course, the title gives very practical advice. It comes from a study of the United States Marines, where it is the policy that the Marine platoon boss always eats after his team. And this is a very practical thing when you are in your team to actually do exactly this, to make sure that your team eats before you do. It shows them respect. But I think it goes more than that. Let's look at what Jesus did. He washed the feet of his disciples. When we were asking earlier, what should we consider leadership to be, many of you said servant. Servant is what this is all about. It's about putting the team's interests and needs before your own. And they will appreciate that. They will be so willing to give to the team if you have this attitude. And it's not that you're doing this as an act. It is a heart attitude. You need to actually want to eat last. You have to be happy if there's no food left. At least I'm the guy that's not eating and not somebody else on my team. That is what you need to do. And I think if you can get there, it is a wonderful, wonderful place to be. So on this one, you can think about giving a talk to your new managers. You can use AI to help you. You can say, look, you are really inspired by the ideas of Simon Sinek. Give me a talk that I can use to share with my team. When you are speaking, never use the word I. I didn't do anything. My team did things. We did things. If you use the word I, it's a danger of fueling pride and ego. And first of all, it's a bad stance to have because the Bible says pride comes before the fall. that's a thing we all have to watch out for. If you're successful, it is very easy to become proud, and you have to really fight that and remain humble. But also, if you start using the word I, the people on your team that actually did the work are going to realize, this guy doesn't care about me. This guy doesn't value my contributions. So I think it's so important that we use the word we when we are speaking to external people, to our teams, and celebrating the accomplishments. Ban the word I. There's a book by, this is quite an old book, by a guy named Peter Drucker, who was a well-respected management advisor, consultant. His book was specifically managing the nonprofit organization. And ironically, only when I researched this talk did I realize his book was about nonprofits, because I always used this attitude in my for-profit work. For most of my career, keeping talent was a big issue. In Canada, we have the mighty United States companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Facebook that come like a giant vacuum cleaner, sucking up tech talent, stealing your employees. And so we wanted to make sure that we treated our staff very, very well. First of all, because it's the right thing to do, but secondly, so that we retained them. And that means, of course, we paid well. We could not pay the same as the mighty Amazon or Microsoft. We would pay them well, but we would give them a good life. We would say, you come and you work from 9 to 5, you give us 8 good hours, you get out of here and have your life. And we would be compassionate as employers. As employees had different issues with health and so on, always compassionate. That was our attitude. Because we realized that anybody working for us, they can go work somewhere else. They're not our slave. And so we need to treat them with the respect that affords. And so that was a big thing that we had. So, if this doesn't come natural, I thought this was an interesting prompt to consider. How can I support and appreciate my staff, especially treating them like they're unpaid volunteers? Give me 5 things. Sometimes some of us aren't the best, most thoughtful people on how we show appreciation, and we might need our little friend here to give us some ideas, but it doesn't take much. It's amazing how small acts can make a huge difference, and if you aren't used to this, get started and it will become more natural after a while. Okay, listen. This takes practice. If you're a busy leader, you have many things on your mind, you are thinking about the next thing, and somebody comes to you and they want to tell you something. The most important thing is to take a deep breath, and in that moment, shut up and listen to them. Let them finish what they're saying, and while they're talking, focus on understanding what they're saying, not what you're going to say next. So, listen. And then, this comes from a book, a really good book that I admire, old one now, by a guy named Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He advises this: seek first to understand. So you listen, and then if you're not sure, you say, I heard you say this, or let me ask you, did you mean this or that? So now I understand what they're saying, and then you say, okay, thank you for that input. The reason that we're going to have soup for lunch is that we can't buy any bread in town. All the bakeries are sold out, but thank you for that input. But you don't shut them off, because maybe they'll say, I just want you to know that I found a bread store that's open and will work for us. And if you cut them off, you don't get a chance to hear what they have to say. And remember, people are the plan. You need to be able to listen to them. So, this is a book that it's about maybe 10 years old now, that I found so useful. And there's a TED Talk that you can watch, a 15-minute version of this. These 3 words for guiding people in an age where you need their brains to be, and their hearts to be doing things for you. So the 3 words are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I'll talk about each of those briefly. So, autonomy. You want your staff, the people that report to you, the leaders that report to you, to be empowered to make decisions on their own. So they don't have to come and ask you for everything anytime something new happens. So you let them make their own decisions. You say to them, look, we need to assemble this podium by noon, and then you leave, and you let them figure out how to do it. I remember my nephew was working for a construction company, and I was shocked after having worked with knowledge workers and that construction company, how those people don't know when they go home from work at 5, they have no idea what they're going to be doing the next morning at 8. None. And they come at 8 and the boss says, today you're going to be pounding in nails over there. Okay, so they start pounding nails. That is maybe okay for construction, but for most things in our modern world, that is not how we can work. We need people to know, hey, I need you to build that table, and they can figure out how many days it's going to take and where they're going to do that. Mastery. We need to give people the ability to become good at what they're doing. Give them time, not to just partly get things done, but to become really good at some things. That's good for their well-being. It makes them try harder. If they become excellent at building tables, then they will have pride in that and they will make even better tables, or whatever that is in your universe. Give them the opportunity to become masters. And that's why things like the Abundant Leadership Institute is fantastic, because it lets us become good at leadership. If that is our thing, we can master that. And lastly, purpose. And Michael's going to talk to us a lot about that, but it's so key that the people working with us understand why they're doing this. In my company's case, we were giving back the time to data scientists so they would spend their time making decisions with information rather than fighting with it. We would say that the world is filled with hard problems. Our users need to be able to make data-informed decisions to solve those problems instead of spending 80% of their time getting the data ready. That was our thing. Although I don't like quoting Elon Musk anymore. It's SpaceX. We want to colonize Mars. So if you work for SpaceX, you come in the morning, you know that what I'm doing is helping us colonize Mars. That is 2 words, really makes it clear. So those 3 words. Whoop, that's not what I want. Okay, the book that I would recommend that you look at, another Simon Sinek book, is called Start With Why, where he really digs into this idea of motivating people by helping them understand why they are doing things. It's almost the first thing out of your mouth. We are going to solve this problem so that, and I would like you to help in this way. Let's start with why. So this is another prompt here to help you figure out how you can use these principles of autonomy, mastery, and purpose to help your team flourish even more. All right, I'll finish up with this. A verse that probably 20 years ago I attended a talk which dug into this one. Act justly from Micah. What does God expect of you? Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. The most important leadership principles verse for me in my whole career. I would sit in meetings having this flip through my head. Okay, which one of these 3 is relevant here, and what does it mean in this situation to act justly? Make sure that justice is served. If you're dealing with people, there are going to be conflicts. There's going to be situations where things aren't working. What does justice look like? It took me a long time. It's only recently that I realized this verse actually has an order to it. The first thing is justice. It may mean sometimes you might have to no longer work with someone. You have to say goodbye to them. That might be justice. But then we flip to the next one. What does it mean to be merciful? Okay, we're going to part ways. But can we do this in a way that is honoring to that person's skills, their life, help them be successful in the next thing? Or when I'm working with a partner that is not quite working well, what does it mean? Can I adjust things to give them a second chance? But remember, we have to act justly. But most importantly, walk humbly. It's not about yourself. Watch for pride. It's the most dangerous thing that I have seen really sink leaders, is when they think it becomes about them, and it really isn't. So, with that in mind, let's remember that technology changes, but principles endure. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I think this is quite vocally understandable enough. Are we ready to dive deeper into leading with principle in this AI-led world? Are we ready? Or we need to stretch a bit? Wonderful. Let us sit. Let us join our seats. There are a few things, a few takeaways that I got from Dale's presentation. And one thing kept coming back to mind. People are the plan. Human-centered leadership. But even though we're in an AI-led world and most of the things, technologies are growing over and over again on a daily basis, we need to know the right values and integrity and principles to guide us throughout this whole entire system, so as we can keep our integrity as Christians, but again as leaders. Without further ado, I would like us to introduce our panel, because we have a period of time for this specific panel, because we have a lot of things to dive into today. I'm going to introduce to you the panelists that we have today. We have Noella Dushime. A big round of applause to Noella. As she steps forward, she's the Managing Director of Government Vertical at Proto, a customer experience AI company, helping African governments enhance public service delivery through technology. She has previously led business and partnerships at Irembo and an HR firm in Rwanda called ITM. She's a purpose-driven leader, a passionate and servant leader, and she's driven by community impact and empowering others. And more to that, she's a proud wife and a mother of two. A big round of applause to her. We also have Crepin, Kayisire. Crepin, Kayisire, a big round of applause to him as he steps forward. He leads KAYKO, a Rwandan fintech company transforming how small business manage and grow their finances through accessible digital tools. He's passionate about financial inclusion and using tech to empower underserved communities. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in good hands. And with that, I want you to put your hands together for them as we dive deeper into this session. Before we continue, I would like us to also have Mr. Dale Lutz. He's also going to be on our panel. A big round of applause to him as he steps forward.
All right, good morning, everyone. I know most of us have dealt with governments. You've probably reached out to one government asking, I have an issue. I'll just quickly give you an example. You go to the Ministry of Local Government, you're looking for your passport. They tell you, oh no, it's not us, go to the immigration. You go there, they tell you, you're lacking your marriage certificate. You go back to the local government. They tell you, okay, here's your certificate. You go back, and then you have to wait. Once you wait, you get your passport. And then maybe it has the wrong name. They tell you, no, it's a NIDA issue. You go to correct your name at NIDA. So when I joined Proto, my hope and what we're doing at Proto is really to sit at the intersection of different government agencies, even the private sector, to really make sure that we relay information between different institutions. We want to be able to sit at the fragmentation that is happening today, where we have digitization happening, but it's still in a siloed manner. So we really sit at the intersection to make sure that once you reach out to a government agency or any agency, it feels like a whole of government approach. You're talking to one entity, and it can be forwarded between multiple cases. You're talking to all of them, and you're not being piggybacked between all of them, but you really are talking to a government, and they're taking your issue, working together to solve your issue rather than forwarding you to the next agency. So that's what we do at Proto, and we leverage AI to do that.
Wonderful. It's people-centered, in other words. Thank you so much. Crepin, you can tell us about KAYKO.
Thank you. Glad to see you all here. So many familiar faces, as Richard said. My name is Crepin, Kayisire, founder and CEO at KAYKO. And what we do at KAYKO is we build tools to help small businesses digitize finances and access capital. The reason why we set out to achieve this very audacious mission is small businesses are the backbone of our economy, yet they're still underserved by the financial institutions. And we kept asking why. We got down to the main problem, which was the lack of financial visibility. Many of these small business owners still use pen and paper to record how they do business, and that makes them not ideal as an investment for many banks and institutions. So we build tools that are not intimidating, that are context appropriate for these business owners to use to digitize how they do business and have that financial visibility that allows them to access capital. We've worked with many organizations in partnership with CRS, Caritas, Inhomoko to help some of their beneficiaries to access this capital. And yeah, I'm really glad to be on this very great panel to discuss about this topic.
We're speaking of digital presence. Wonderful. So yes, please, go ahead. Just to clarify this before we dive deeper into the questions that I'm about to ask, I'm going to ask only one question, but I also want you to write down anything that you'd like to ask them, because this is going to be more about you than me asking them. So if you have a question, I want you to write it down, and after this round of the questions, I will give you time, and you can go ahead and ask the question you have. I will begin again with Noella Dushime. The question I have is a bit, yes, people-oriented, but it goes deeper into the principles. And it goes, how can African leaders ensure that AI development and the deployment are guided by ethical principles, and I highlight on the ethical principles, that reflect our continent's diverse values and social contexts?
All right, thank you for the question. Starting with artificial intelligence, and I think what's happening on the continent is really exciting. One thing I didn't mention is that Proto is a global company. It's actually based from Canada, so shareholders are from the Canada and the US, and we are working, for me, I oversee the African region, and I get the opportunity to interact with multiple countries, multiple companies who are really doing amazing work within AI. And the first thing I would say is really we need to get started on building. We need to start building as Africans. We need to start building as leaders. If you're a leader within your sector, you need to be able to start building something and leveraging AI to be able to you can actually make your people more efficient. You can scale your business, but you really need to get started on building. And when we're building, we need to be able to understand the context. And for me, I really look at the African continent where we still have an issue of internet connectivity. We still have an issue of access to smart devices. So even in how you're building and designing your solution, you have to be able to relate to the context we are in. You need to be able to understand the realities, the economic realities, the digital inclusion that is happening. And you need to talk to your users. I think we're getting to a point where technology is being built in boardrooms. It's not being built for the users. So we need to be able to step out and talk to our users. And I think we have a diverse generation around here. So all of these people are going to use your technology. So you need to be able to talk to them. We need to have pastors involved. We need to have elders involved. All of them have to be able to participate. You need to understand how will you deploy? How will you be able to have everyone access your technology? I feel like everyone thinks AI is going on the web. You have to have a web chat, a chatbot. It has to be there. But the ways the technology is being delivered, it has to speak into my current reality. If you have to deliver it on WhatsApp to be able to meet my needs, you have to be able to deliver it on SMS. You have to be able to even use the local communities that are there. So you need to be able to understand the context, and we need to get started on building. I challenge everyone who's here, go back to your workplace and think, how do we enable AI within what we do? And you need to get started. I think it's, like he said, it's rapidly evolving, and the good thing on the continent, we still have young people who are embracing AI. I've seen how, back in the days in my previous job, I think most of you know me from Irembo, when we were starting on this journey, people were so afraid of using Irembo. How can I apply for a government service on a platform online? It was so scary for people to actually embrace it. But today when we talk about AI, as I go through different communities, people are actually ready for it. They're ready to consume it. They're ready to interact with it. But you need to be able to build user-friendly products that they can actually interact with. The second thing I can talk about is data. We still have an issue where data is fragmented, but you still need to start somewhere, right? You need to look at what kind of data are we using? How are you gathering the data? How are you training the models? What kind of data are you using? How are you actually testing it? And how do you look at the authenticity of the data that you're using? And how do you also keep in mind, how do you protect the data of the citizens that you're using? And you put in place guardrails and mechanisms to ensure that it's secure and safe. At Proto, one of the things I do, I work with governments. And the first thing that I really love that is happening on the continent is really the data privacy and protection law that is being put in place. In Rwanda, it's already enforced. You go across the different countries, it's being put in place because we have to be aware of the data they are exposing to these language models, and we have to be able to protect the citizens. So you need to be able to understand, okay, what kind of data am I exposing? And you have to work with partners who are transparent. You have to put in place, first of all, if you're a builder, you have to be transparent. You have to be able to be honest with yourself. And if you're a policymaker, if you're an agency that is going to work and implementing these solutions, you have to ask for transparency on how the data is going to be exposed and how are you going to keep the data, which now brings me to a more technical bit where we talk about infrastructure. How are we going to host the data? Where are we going to host the data? When you think of technology, it's easy to host on the cloud. It's easy to actually use cloud services, but you have to be honest with the government and say, especially for me when I work with different governments, we have to understand, okay, where are we going to host people's data? Is it best to host it on premise? Is it best to host on cloud? And you have to guide the client to say, okay, these are the principles. This is how best we can keep you protected. And you really have to apply them because at the end of the day, if you're exposing someone's data, you need to be able to understand, is it sensitive data? Because also the conversation about sensitive data is still lacking. We don't know what sensitive data is. We don't know what is not sensitive data. So you need to be able to apply these principles and say, in my understanding, I think this data has to be hosted. And you have to encourage, and I encourage everyone to really start thinking about doubling down on infrastructure, the investment of infrastructure, because it's really what is going to help us to deploy these solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Two main things that I took from what she said is having things that we use when speaking about technology, user-friendly, as we organize or as we prepare and design these programs and we design everything accordingly as leaders, we have to make sure that it's user-friendly, that's one. And number two, very important, safeguarding. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be about us, but the people that we're serving, the community that we're serving. We have to make sure, like she was saying, that it's not that sensible that you have to ruin somebody's life just to build your own company. So you have to keep in mind the safeguarding principles. I want to go to Crepin. I want to ask you something more practical. I believe as you're the youth, obviously, you're going to also help us and be more practical. What practical steps can leaders across sectors take to build trust in AI? Most of the people who are more aged, they don't really have trust in AI. Like earlier on, they were saying, we don't really trust in AI. We don't know. Most people don't even want to post on WhatsApp. They're like, that's privacy. I don't want my things to go out there. Don't you? Don't you? Let's be honest here. Most people don't really trust onto how our information is really out there exposed. So I want you to tell us in some practical ways that leaders across sectors can really build trust in AI technologies and also especially in communities with limited digital exposure.
Oh, that's a really heavy one. But I will maybe answer it in the context of what I do. When we build, so KAYKO is basically a fintech company. So, and the people we build this for are, I would say, on the end of the spectrum when it comes to digital literacy. So we are very deliberate about how we build these tools. So it's now when you bring in AI, it's a whole other story. But you'll be surprised by how many people out there are aware of things like data privacy. I remember one user, was asking us, this lady from the Agachiriro, they make like wood and furniture. She was asking us about GDPR and all these things that I'd never thought about. Like people know, these very intricate issues about data. So there are different, technologies out here, and there are different ways to consume this content. So people who are worried about posting, I would totally understand, because, with AI content, AI-generated content, sometimes I myself have to, take a second look to see, is this really AI or, but it's also, we also need to think of what am I putting out there, like how helpful is it for the general public, because as much as you consume, you also put things out there, and when you put it out there and you're not really thinking about how you're communicating, or the deception that may come with that, you end up just proving that AI may be a force for harm, which I personally don't think it's totally a harmful element of technology. As Dale mentioned, technology will always progress, but principles endure. And it's a really good highlight of his talk. And when it comes to how we personally interact with AI and these different technologies that are coming up, we have to think, how can this benefit the people I'm building for or the people I'm working with? In our case, we use different things like MCP to basically help these businesses get AI-powered insight into their numbers, right? Many of them don't have the time to go back and crunch numbers to understand what's my profit for the month, what's my accounts receivables, but with just a small prompt, they can learn about things that may not be going well in their business, and that has significantly reduced the amount of time and the amount of effort they put in their business, and now they can focus on what they do best, if it's baking, if it's cooking, if it's doing furniture. And we think that's a good use of AI, not just generating cat videos that waste our time, but using AI to see how it can also help people to save time, save money, be more productive, and really tap into that one thing which I believe AI is still very far from, which is human agency and ingenuity and creativity. And yeah, that's how I can go about it.
Thank you so much, Crepin, about that. I want to come back to Dale. There's something that you mentioned, but again, I want you to bridge the gap in a certain way. There's a way that technology is evolving on a very rapid pace. And there's a lot of pressure out here. Many people feel the pressure of these rapid innovations coming in and out. And at a certain point, to most people, it's not that likely that they welcome it. And it's quite understandable, because some people do lose their jobs and everything. But I want you to speak about this a little bit. How can leaders balance this pressure for rapid innovation with the need of principled leadership that safeguards jobs and also data privacy as well as social equity?
So I remember I left my company in December of 2023. That was only 1 year into the modern AI, generative AI era. But one of the phrases that we began to see being used is either we need to use AI or be replaced by other people who are using AI. So the way to ensure job security is to look at what you're doing and say, how can AI make me even that much more productive? Because if you say no, someone else somewhere is going to say yes. And I remember my business partner, Don, used to say that Dale by himself is pretty good, but Dale plus AI is the better package. And so that's the case for any situation. So encourage staff that way, that it's not a thing to be feared, but it is a thing to make them able to get things done. And many of the things, now I think the danger is that our staff, our people, we all become lazy and forget how to think. So that's the thing we have to guard against. We still need to think, but it absolutely is true that someone can be literally, I've seen it 10 times more productive when they think about an idea and now they ask AI to help them or generate things, and whoosh, it takes away the drudgery. We used to have this saying about, do you want to, for any staff member, are they lazy, yes or no? And are they ambitious, yes or no? And the answer is, actually, the best employee is someone who's lazy and ambitious, because they will get the most done with the least amount of effort. The one that's actually very dangerous is the one that's not lazy and ambitious, because they're going to make all kinds of work and do things the hardest way, and they'll be working till midnight every night, but they aren't thinking about how they can do this smarter. So that's a long answer to say that use AI, be lazy, be ambitious, get more done in less time. On the data privacy, that is astronomically important. And so any systems that people create, even when you're using AI, you need to think about where's my discussion being saved. And maybe for some things you don't care. If it's a nonprofit and you're not really having any secrets and you're not talking about specific cases, then you don't care. It can help you, and that's fine. But if it is something more serious, you may need to look at paid options. My company was very happy to trust Microsoft, for example, with data. They are very good. I want to endorse them, but choose your provider wisely. And also a big issue, I don't know if it's in Africa, but certainly in Canada, it's where is the data stored? If you're using Microsoft, do they have a data center that's local, or is there a local provider you can use instead? But these are very serious issues. I was fortunate for most of my career. For the first 20 years, we didn't have to worry about this. In the last 10, it became a very big thing.
Thank you so much. That's very powerful. Are we all willing to become lazy and ambitious? Are we willing to become lazy and ambitious? Let me see with a show of hands. Who are willing to become lazy and ambitious? It's not necessarily something negative, because he explained it in a very positive and empowering way. And I believe it's not something really negative. So I just wish I could become that lazy and ambitious. Then I will use everything that I have with the least amount of time, with the usage of AI, Erica plus AI, even better, right? Great. So let me come to you. Do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to... Oh, well, that was so fast. Oh, I love that. I love that. Can I have somebody help me with the microphone, please?
Where?
Meanwhile, let me just help.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I have a short story I want to share with the panelists, and whoever confident will make a comment. So there was a guy who went to apply for a job as a security guard. So when he arrived there, the first question was, give us your email, you will apply via email. So the guy said, I don't have an email, so he couldn't apply. He go back home. So once home, he set up a small business, like selling small things like Fanta, juice. Then he became a very successful businessman. At a certain point, he was like forced to hire a modern like manager. So the first day in the office, the manager asked him, boss, can I have your email? So the boss looked at him, then answered, if I had an email, I would be a security guard somewhere. So can you comment on that, please?
Thank you so much. Would you like to comment on that one, Dave?
I think I'll pass. Yes.
Let's go to the younger generation, please.
I think maybe I can comment on that because we've had a similar experience. When we were training some business owners in Gakenye. You know, when you're, signing into an app, you have sign in with Google, sign in with Apple, or sign in with your email. And they were like, what is this? I haven't seen this before. So that pushed us to go and rethink our whole, not just authentication, but the whole way we're building our solutions to build them for the users that are actually going to use them. Most of these guys, their phone number is their identification. They use it for Momo, they use it for calling, text, everything. So we switched to just sign in with your phone number. And I think from that analogy, I think we have to think as leaders when we're building the solutions that we want people to use. We have to start with the people. We have to start asking why do they need this, how are they going to use it, and walk backwards. And I think that's a very funny story that I'm going to steal for later.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can we have 2 more people, a bit more faster? I would like you to tell us your name and where you're coming from. If it's an institution or organization, you can name it, and your question. Thank you.
My name is Dayo Adeyemi. It's a contribution, AI, and the danger of human relationship. Let's remember we're a community. We're a relationship. You go on AI and you say, ChatGPT, encourage me. It talks to you as if it's a human being. And if you understand the goal of the string technology, the ultimate goal is man for himself. With your phone, you can get food. You can get a wife. You can get anything you want. With advances in machine language, we as pastors, we must strive to build a community of people with human face. Because a time is coming. AI can tell you anything you want, and you feel so good about it, and you lose the community, you lose the family. For me, the greatest danger of AI is losing the community and the village that raised us up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor, for the contribution. Do we have somebody? Okay. Great. We can have one person here on this side. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel.
And please get close to the microphone so as we can...
Yes, my name is Emmanuel. I run a company called Palin. We supply laboratory solutions, equipment, and consumables. I also share his concern, and for me, it's from the movies we used to watch way back when. There was a movie called Eagle Eye where basically machines imprisoned human beings and human beings became slaves. As a leader running an organization, I sometimes feel compelled to protect the human race by not subscribing to these things that could become exactly that. What would you advise a leader to do to play their role of protecting the human race despite this very big impetus to jump onto this wave of AI? Because everybody is talking about that positive side, but I think the negative side is coming and we need to avoid it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. One last question, only one.
Thank you. My name is Martine. I'm in education. My question goes to Crepin. When I hear you, when I see you, and some other more, I ask a question to what we are doing today in education, because when I think about you when you were 5, we couldn't know, and today I'm asking myself, what should we do? Because we see you are doing things we've never thought about, and it is still coming. What do you advise us today as educators so that we can help you to be there you should be in 20 years to come, 30 years to come? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Crepin is going to use the time machine like Dale's presentation, right? So it's 2025, we are going to go to 2050, I believe. Great. I think I will give that question that he has asked. It's more of human-centered leadership, and I would like you to take this one, how we can keep this human-centered leadership in the community so as we can never, we protect the human race like he was mentioning in this fast-evolving AI world. Please.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very hard problem. I'm sure, well, I'm old here, but I was young when the Terminator movie came out, and we're really living in the precursor of Skynet and Terminator right now. But each one of us, we can't stop global trends ourselves, but we can make differences in our own little spheres. And that's where God has put us. Let's make sure we make that impact there. And so, yes, I can't stop what some countries might do, some bad people might do, but I can do my best to have my people I interact with, people I work with, people I serve, be better because of me using the technology than they would be otherwise. Because one way or another, those bad guys they're going to do whatever they're going to do, whether we use the technology or not. So we need to make sure that we are shining a light and using the technology to at least keep pace with what the other forces do. So that's my advice. And that's not, I mean, humanity has been that way since the beginning. When we first picked up a rock and tied it to a stick and made a hammer, we could make something good or we could hurt somebody. And the problem is our tools have gotten far more powerful, but it's still the same problem. So I encourage us all to see what can we do to make something good. How can we be a light and shine that in and change hearts, knowing that there's going to be a battle that's fought.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I think, Crepin, you can also go. Please, go ahead.
I wanted to share a personal story. So I joined Proto 2 months ago, and I had to spend a whole month explaining to my mom what I was going to do, because she was so scared that I was going to work for something she has never understood, heard of, and even for her, I don't think she gets to interact with a lot of AI conversations. So for her, I had to spend a whole month educating her what I'm going to do, because she felt like I'm going to be one of the... She didn't understand. So going back to the question he asked, and I want to address it to the leaders in the room, where there is fear, there is lack of information. And really the fear that we have today is because of lack of information. And what I'm seeing is that people are not willing to invest in learning so that they then manage the fear, right? So I would encourage every leader in the room, or just every individual, to rethink about your education, and I think Crepin is going to talk about it, is to rethink how you're learning and what you're consuming. Because if you don't take time to understand what artificial intelligence is, because it's a multidisciplinary tool, it's not just one thing, it's not ChatGPT. It's a lot of things that we're talking about. It's working in the health sector. I've seen in some cases where some of you who know about triage, where you go to some hospitals and AI is helping nurses to do triage. It's much more faster, it's much more better. I'm seeing it happening in the telemedicine space. If you go to agriculture, so there are so many sectors being impacted, and it's really not about ChatGPT and someone conversing with ChatGPT. So it's really so many things happening. So you need to be able to understand what's happening, how does this apply into my context? How do I invest in L&D differently? I've had conversations with different leaders, and then at the Global AI Summit, one of the things that everyone took away was L&D. How do companies restructure their learning and development framework to focus on upskilling and reskilling their people? Because obviously, new people are coming in with different skill sets that you've never seen, and they're going to do a job that was taking me 2 months, 1 day. So how do you make sure that you invest in your learning and development frameworks to reskill your people and upskill? Because new jobs are being created. What he did, there's a job called prompt engineer. That's a new job that was created because of AI. So we have prompt engineers now. All they do is just writing great prompts. And if they write great prompts, they can do your job in 2 days. So I'm not saying this to scare you, but I'm saying this to say you have fear because you're not taking time to learn, understand, master this subject, and then go back and say, how do I apply this in my daily life? And how do I take people with me on the journey so that they're not in their corner, but they actually embrace the technology that we're talking about?
Thank you so much for the input. Just to add one thing about that, there's something that my leader normally likes to say, that data replaces doubt. Unless you're informed enough, you'll always be doubtful, you will always be hesitant to try it because you're not informed about it. But as soon as you're informed about it, then you can defeat that challenge that you're seeing because you've been informed already, you have the information already, then nothing can stop you. So once you're informed, the doubt that you have, it will go automatically. Thank you so much, Noella. Let me go to Crepin. Take us into that time machine. What do you need? How can we help you as educators move from this side to go to 2050 and you're already equipped with what you need to become who you ought to be?
That's a really good question. And I think in this new era of AI, educators will have the hardest time to adapt but that's the reality. Because the way we learn, or the way we used to learn, was very rudimental. You have notes, you have exams. It's structured in a way that it was structured, 50, 100 years ago. But as we evolve with technology, we also have to look at the good that we can, take from AI. One thing Wellspring really did well back when I was there was they had these science fairs and science and IT competitions. This was, kind of extracurricular. It wasn't coming on your, report, but that was the highlight of my high school experience because you have no teacher telling you what to do. You have no, grade that you're working towards, but you just have pure curiosity, and you just want to build the best thing, and you want to show the whole world what you built. So that was usually the time I looked forward to, in the entire year, because that was the best time. And I really think the people who thought about that was really, really good. And looking back at what I really liked about that was that it just allowed me to go and research and learn as much as I can without any limitations. We didn't have ChatGPT at the time, but we had, Google, we had, textbooks, we had a lot of resources. Not as many, physical resources for chemistry, but I hope that's changed now. But that's why I focused a lot in, software and building software, because that's what I could do. And software and now AI is sort of an equalizer and makes like a level playing field. So what I can build is what someone in Vancouver can build, someone in Sri Lanka can build. So it's just, at the level you can think, you can build anything you want to build. So as educators, what I can urge, or what I can look, what I want to see maybe in the next 20 years is how can we, develop curriculums, improve classrooms, or improve the way we learn to adopt AI, but just push to have more curiosity in the classroom, push to have more human interaction, group work, things that AI will not take from us anytime soon. That is what makes us human. That's what makes us productive. And when you're, educating people for the workforce, you have to look at where that workforce will be and walk backwards. Now we're using AI in our, 9-to-5s. We're using AI in our startups. We're using AI. It won't go anywhere anytime soon. So we just have to learn what makes that person using AI in their job, what makes them effective, what makes them productive, and how can I enable them to have those human characteristics that allow them to be effective in their job while they're still in school. So that's maybe what I could advise for educators today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. A big round of applause to our panelists. And I apologize for those who haven't had the time to ask the questions, but we're going for a short break, and this is your time to connect and ask them as many questions and as many interactions that you would like to have with them in this moment that we're going to go for the tea break. But before we conclude, I want you to put your hands together again for the panelists that we had for this session. And lastly, I want you to go back with this, that we have to adapt, like Dale mentioned. The world is moving on a fast pace and we have to adapt. And even in 2050, moving to the time machine, it's quite funny how Crepin was saying that when he was studying, there was no AI. And I'm like, as young as we are, we're saying we didn't have AI back then. And I'm like, hold on, were we in 1937? Because we can't even remember life without AI. But regardless of all of that, as the world keeps on moving, let us inform ourselves, because with data we can replace the doubt and we can chase out the fear and any other challenge that we feel, which makes us become or collide with the beauty or with the advantage that it brings to our lives and the way that we lead. With that, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to our panelists as they go back to their seats. Thank you so much for the wisdom. Thank you so much for the experience. And thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge that you've acquired over the time. As we move close to the tea break, I want to mention that for whoever wants to go to the washroom, you will pass through that door and you will go down the stairs down, and then you will see the door and also a little signpost that shows where the washrooms are. And in case maybe you get lost, we have the ushering team. You can see them in black suits and white t-shirts. They can even direct you in case you would like to go there. Please, Sam.
Awesome. This is time for the tea break. And we are going to pray, but before we pray, Pastor Focus and Jackie and Pastor Ruth, you are going to lead this team in front here, our guests, through there. The rest of us are going to use, we have 2 places, our buffet for the break tea, so I want to do it as fast as we can. Would love to be here by 11:15. Father, we thank you for the session this morning, how informative and empowering. We bless you for the provision in Jesus' name. Amen.